They say betrayal is the deepest wound. It's not the knife that cuts, it's the hand holding it, the one you trusted, the one you loved, the ones you thought would never, ever let you fall. My name is Emma, and this is the story of the two people who destroyed me and how I watched them destroy each other. But this isn't a story about hate. It's a story about silence, about the kind of quiet that speaks louder than screams. I was 22 when I met Jake, junior year at university. He wasn't the type of guy I thought I wanted, too polished, too sure of himself. But there was something magnetic about the way he looked at you, like you were the only person in the entire world who mattered. We were at a coffee shop, one of those chaotic student hangouts where everyone's half awake and running on caffeine and desperation. I was sitting alone, buried in my economics textbook, when someone sat across from me and said, "You're thinking about this all wrong. The market doesn't move in straight lines. It breathes." I looked up, annoyed at first, but then I saw him smile, and, well, I was lost. That was the beginning. We became inseparable, not in the suffocating way, but in the way that felt like coming home. 3 years. 3 years of late night conversations where he'd tell me his dreams, a business, freedom, building something that mattered. And I believed in him. God, I believed in him so much. "You make me want to be better," he'd say, kissing my forehead while we lay in bed. "You're my anchor." I held those words close. I built my entire sense of happiness around them. And then there was Lily. We grew up together, met in 4th grade when she moved in next door. She was everything I wasn't. Loud, confident, the kind of person who could walk into a room and immediately make you feel like you'd been best friends forever. She was my constant. When my parents fought, Lily was there. When I failed my first exam, Lily made me laugh so hard I forgot to cry. When I met Jake, she was thrilled for me, genuinely thrilled. "He's perfect for you," she said, hugging me. "Finally, a guy who's not intimidated by how amazing you are." We did everything together, the three of us, double dates, weekend trips, inside jokes that only made sense to us. I told Lily things I didn't even tell Jake, fears, insecurities, the little doubts that every person keeps locked away. I trusted her with the most fragile parts of myself. I was so stupid. Jake proposed on a Sunday morning. Nothing fancy. We were making breakfast in our tiny apartment, and he just got down on one knee. No ring yet. He did it properly a week later, but that first moment in our kitchen with flour on his hands and coffee in the air, that was real. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making you feel like you did this morning, like you're the luckiest woman alive." I felt lucky. I felt chosen. I felt like I'd won the lottery of life, not because of money or status, but because I'd found someone who seemed to see me, really see me. Lily was my maid of honor. She cried at the engagement party, happy tears, she said. She helped me plan. We looked at wedding dresses on lazy Sunday afternoons. We talked about our futures. She was going to move in with us, eventually. She was struggling with her roommate situation, and I had invited her to stay. Everything felt like it was falling into place, like my life was finally becoming the beautiful thing I'd always imagined. I was so naive. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just chose not to see them. It started small, Jake working late, later than usual. Not every night, but enough that I noticed. When I asked, he'd kiss my cheek and say something about investors or meetings. He was building his dream. I understood. Or at least I told myself I did. Lily stopped calling. She'd always been the one to initiate long, rambling conversations about her day, her dating disasters, her work drama. But suddenly her responses became short. "Busy with work," she texted. "Talk later?" Later never came. I remember lying in bed one night, Jake beside me, already asleep, and thinking something is wrong. You know something is wrong. You just don't want to know what it is. I was so focused on protecting the happiness I thought I had that I couldn't see it was already gone. It was a Wednesday. I'd been stuck in meetings all day, budget reviews, spreadsheets, the kind of soul-crushing corporate work that makes you count the hours until escape. I left at 4, just wanting to go home, order takeout, and watch something mindless. Jake wasn't home. I texted him, "Where are you?" No response for 10 minutes. Then, "Working late. Don't wait for dinner. Love you." I remember standing in our kitchen, that message glowing on my phone, and something inside me felt wrong, cold. Like I was staring at a sentence written in a language I'd suddenly forgotten how to read. I don't know what made me do it. Intuition, I guess. The kind that lives in your gut and whispers warnings you've trained yourself not to hear. I drove to Lily's apartment. It wasn't planned. It was just the place my hands wanted to take the car. Her building is on Oakwood Street, a Victorian converted into 6 units. Hers is on the second floor, corner apartment with big windows facing the street. I parked across from it. And for a moment, I just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, breathing. And then I looked up. The curtains were open. Their silhouettes were dark against the lamplight inside. I could see Jake. I could see Lily. I could see his hand on her face, her laughing, him leaning in. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't burst through that door with rage and accusations and all the things you're supposed to do in those moments. I just watched. Like I was studying a scene in a play where I was no longer cast as the main character. I sat in my car for 45 minutes. I counted the seconds, watched the light in the window, saw their shapes moving, never moved. When I finally drove away, it wasn't because I was overwhelmed with emotion. It was because I was overwhelmed with clarity, a strange, icy clarity that felt almost peaceful. They were betraying me, not because I wasn't enough, but because they were weak. And weakness, I realized, is a choice people make over and over until it becomes who they are. I went home to the apartment Jake and I shared. I put a suitcase on the bed and I packed with the same quiet precision I'd used to sit in that car. Clothes, toiletries, photos, memories. Everything I could fit. I left a note on the kitchen counter. I know. I'm done. I blocked his number at 11:47 p.m. I blocked Lily's at 11:48 p.m. I didn't read their messages. I didn't listen to their voicemails. I just erased them from my life the way you delete a typo. For weeks, I fell apart. I know that seems contradictory to what I've told you, but it's the truth. I didn't cry in front of them, but alone, I fell apart completely. I'd wake up at 3 a.m, gasping, replaying the last 3 years frame by frame. Did I miss something? Was there a moment where I could have seen this coming? Was I so busy being happy that I forgot to be aware? I blamed myself. That's what we do when we're hurt. We internalize it. We turn it into proof that we weren't enough, weren't smart enough, weren't worth the effort it takes to be honest. My sister moved in for a few weeks. She didn't say much. Just made sure I ate, made sure I showered, made sure I didn't entirely disappear into the darkness of my own mind. She kept saying, give it time. Time heals everything. But time wasn't healing me. Time was just making me angrier. One night, maybe 5 weeks in, I was scrolling through social media. I do not recommend this when you're heartbroken. It's like intentional self-harm. But I was weak that night. I saw a post. Jake and Lily at some restaurant smiling at the camera. A mutual friend had tagged them both. And under the post, a comment. The cutest couple, so happy for you. And something inside me snapped. Not in a destructive way, in the transformative way. I stopped asking, why did they do this to me? And I started asking, what are they afraid of? Because betrayal comes from fear. Fear of missing out, fear of wanting something more, fear of being ordinary. And the people who hurt you most are the ones running hardest from their own weakness.
And suddenly,
I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt something else. Not hate, not revenge in the traditional sense. Something quieter, something more powerful. Understanding. I started researching. Jake had told me everything about his business, the people he wanted to impress, the investors he was pursuing, the way he talked about his financial model like it was sacred. I knew his password. I'd helped him set up his business email. I knew the names of people he was pitching to. And I knew something else. I knew Jake. I knew that his ambition was beautiful, but unstable. That he cut corners when no one was looking. That he believed the ends justified the means. Lily couldn't keep a secret if her life depended on it. She'd once told my entire family about a surprise party before the day it happened. She gossiped. She spoke before she thought. She was transparent as glass. I thought about coming forward myself, getting justice through legal channels. But that would take years, and he'd spin it as a bitter ex-girlfriend. He'd win. So instead, I did something different. I healed. Or at least I acted like I was healing. 3 weeks after discovering them, I answered one of Jake's calls. Not Lily. I was done with her. But Jake. "Emma," he said. And he sounded so broken. "Please, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. It meant nothing. She doesn't matter. You're everything. Please come home." And I listened. And I said in the softest voice I could manage, "I need time." I played the role perfectly. The girl who was healing, the girl who was learning to forgive, the girl who believed in second chances. Over the next month, I became his lifeline. I answered his messages. I agreed to coffee. I told him I believed in him, which was true, just not in the way he thought. I told him I wanted to help with his business, which was also true. "I've been thinking about the startup," I said over coffee one afternoon. We were sitting in the same cafe where we met, and the irony wasn't lost on me. "About your vision. It's brilliant. You deserve investors who understand what you're building." His face lit up like I'd given him the world. I have a friend, a very successful man. He invests in early-stage companies. I think he'd love to hear your pitch. What Jake didn't know was that my friend was an investigative journalist who'd won a Pulitzer Prize for uncovering financial fraud. I'd contacted him 2 weeks earlier with no context except, "I think you should meet someone." I introduced them at a networking event, told Jake his company was exactly the kind of thing he might want to look into. I planted the seed, and then I walked away. It took 2 weeks. The article came out on Tuesday morning. Local startup under investigation for securities fraud. The headline looked clinical, but the content was devastating. Financial reports that didn't match. Money trails that led nowhere. Investor accounts that had been manipulated. The journalist had been thorough. He had receipts, screenshots, emails, everything. By Wednesday, local news was covering it. By Thursday, the story had gone regional. Jake's company dissolved within days. Investors were calling lawyers. His business partner was cooperating with authorities, trading testimony for immunity. And Lily? She was collateral damage. The article mentioned her by name, a false reference, proof of her involvement. Her employer saw it, a mid-level marketing firm with a reputation to protect. They fired her immediately. She called me 8 times that day. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Jake filed for bankruptcy a month later. He moved back with his parents. His relationship with Lily ended when she realized he couldn't help her anymore, when he became a burden instead of a benefit. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he called me one night. I didn't pick up, but I'd saved his voicemail. He was crying. The confident, charming man I'd loved was completely broken. He talked about how his life was ruined, how he didn't understand what happened, how everything had fallen apart so suddenly. He kept saying, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know how this happened." I played it once, just once, and then I deleted it. Lily left town 3 months later. I don't know where she went. Somewhere she could start over, somewhere people didn't know her name or her shame. People asked me if I felt better, if revenge had satisfied something in me. The truth is more complicated. I didn't feel avenged. I felt released. I had spent so much energy loving them, trusting them, believing in them. And then I'd spent so much energy hating them, replaying the betrayal, wondering what I'd done wrong. By orchestrating their downfall, I wasn't seeking revenge. I was seeking closure. I was choosing what story I got to tell about myself. I could have been the victim who never recovered, the girl whose trust was broken so badly that she spent years building walls. That's a valid story. That's a real story. But it wasn't my story. My story was about a girl who was hurt, who felt that hurt completely, who understood what it meant, and then who chose to move forward without carrying it with her. I spent the next year rebuilding. Not rebuilding my life, rebuilding myself. I started therapy. I journaled. I went to the gym not to punish my body, but to honor it. I took classes I'd always wanted to take. I made friends who didn't have hidden agendas. I dated again. Not Jake. Not anyone like Jake. I dated people who were honest about who they were and what they wanted. Eventually, I did forgive Jake and Lily, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved not to carry their betrayal anymore. Forgiveness didn't mean I forgot. It meant I acknowledged what happened, honored what I learned, and then I let it go. Last year, I ran into Jake's mother at a coffee shop. She didn't recognize me at first. When she did, her face fell. "Emma," she said, "I'm so sorry for what he did to you." And I smiled, genuinely smiled, and said, "Thank you. I'm sorry for what happened to him too." And I meant it, because his suffering didn't give me joy. It just meant that the universe had its own way of enforcing consequences. Karma doesn't need our help. It doesn't need our rage or our elaborate plans. It needs our honesty. It needs us to tell the truth about what happened and then to step aside and let the world respond. I learned something through all of this, something that I wish I could tell every person who's ever been betrayed. You are not what was done to you. You are not your heartbreak. You are not your rage. You are not even your forgiveness. You are the choice you make to keep moving forward. You are the silence you choose when silence is more powerful than screams. You are the version of yourself that your betrayers never got to see, the one that grew from their mistakes, that learned from their weakness, that became stronger because of their cruelty. That's the real payback, not their downfall, your survival. They say betrayal hurts most when it comes from someone you trust. That's true. But there's something stronger than betrayal. And it's the quiet knowledge that you got back up, that you rebuilt, that you became someone they could have never been. Someone honest, someone whole, someone who doesn't need revenge because they've already won. You just listened to the Payback Diaries, where betrayal meets justice, and every scar tells a story. Subscribe for more stories like this one, because karma always keeps receipts.